So we're going to discuss an update to the state use job aid. Our next bid buy training will be tomorrow. That's our monthly bid buy training that we do the second Wednesday of each month. Then we'll talk about the new series, Tales from the Training Desk, where we just kind of take interesting questions that come to us or maybe other SPOs, interesting situations that I think we can uh, discuss and unpack. And so if it comes up to you, as many of these things do in procurement, you'll know what to do. And then fun fact of the day and quote of the day. So first up, state use job aid has been recently updated and published. So you'll notice a 21.2. I know this isn't a very super common procurement method, but for those of you that have touched the state use, you'll notice that there is a slight change, and that regards to is regarding the bidders tab. So every time we make changes on our job aids, I always want to highlight them on our Training Tuesday call. And just as a reminder, anytime you do a procurement, always go out to our job aids and utilize the most recent version. At least double check the version number that you have on there. So you'll see that I posted something yesterday, and a lot of times I'll actually put the date. I shouldn't say a lot of times. I always put the date when I make change in the title, so you can also use that as a reference. But really, the only change was we needed to add all vendors, not just the one state use vendor. So whether that was a previous process on past procurements, moving forward, we'll make sure that all vendors with that NIGP code are on the bidders list and notified. Another change that was made was you had the option to add that state use vendor at the rec as well. And the thinking was that particularly at that time is, well, we're only adding the one vendor. So you could just add them at the rec, make them the recommended vendor, and then not have to add them at the bid. So this kind of just provides consistency across the board. So you're going to see that this is going to match all of our other job aids, which just makes it easier. And because all those bidders need to be notified for the state use. Here is the link. So just since we do have new people all the time, I went ahead and put the link to the job aid here. And let me just, any chance we get to show this page, I like to show it. Here is the bid by job aid page. So I have that just as a favorite at the top of within Chrome. It's super easy. Anytime I need to go do a small purchase or an IFB, I simply click on that page. I go right to that job aid, and then, like I said, either if you like to have yours printed out, at least take 2 clicks, double check that you're utilizing the most recent version, 21.3, or in this case, if it was state use, you can see that it's 21.2, and then, like I said, you can see the date too. So that's going to be a helpful reference for you. All right, let's go back to our slides. Our bid by monthly training will be tomorrow. We always do it the second Wednesday of each month. We do keep this link open. You do not have to pre-register. One thing we will ask, though, as a part of each session is just that you put in your agency in the chat box, so we can just kind of keep track of what agencies are joining us. Nothing is changing from last month. Our agenda is going to be 9 a.m. We do an overview of and a little bit of history behind the system, general navigation, what's on your home screen. We take a short break. 10:15, we do a small purchase under $10,000. Break for lunch. 1 p.m., we do a small purchase over $10,000. Take a short break, and then we finish up the day doing a release off master training. So this is required training for those of you that maybe don't have access to the system yet. And if you go to that registration form, an approver, and most likely most of the time it's the APO that will sign your training, will sign the registration saying that you have been trained. This is the training that we're talking about. So you don't have to follow us if you already have access to training, or excuse me, if you already have access to bid buy, but you just want a refresher, this is really helpful. You don't have to join us the entire day, but certainly we want to be able to pop in and out if you need to. But if this is the first time that you are getting trained, you really need to be here the entire day in each one of those sessions. So hopefully we'll join you, or you'll join us tomorrow morning, and we'll see you then. They also are recorded and sent out to everyone who joins us. That's also a question we get. So if you aren't able to attend one of the sessions, you'll still have access to the recording for that day or for that session. Okay, next up, let's see. So Tales from the Training Desk. So we have a new series here. It's similar to an FAQ, but it's not really. It's just a little bit more interesting because we get questions all the time, right? SPOs are in contact with each other, and there can be some interesting things that happen with in procurement that isn't necessarily super cut and dry, and we'll talk about these things. So I thought it would be kind of cool to have a Tales from the Training Desk, which is just kind of a dramatic name for just talking about some interesting situations that might arise in procurement. So for today, a vendor submits a Forms B for a company that was recently absorbed by a parent company. I thought this was interesting, and we pack it. So some of you might be actually on the call that were a part of these discussions. Maybe I think it was yesterday. And so I'll never call out your agency or anything like that. Don't worry about that. But as these things come across my desk, I do think it's interesting, and and other people will see value in it. So the vendor submitted a Forms B. They had an active registration in IPG. However, they were recently absorbed by a parent company. So that particular company wasn't technically a company anymore. They had been, I don't remember exactly what the term was absorbed, but essentially they were no longer the company. Their parent company was the one that would actually be doing this contract. And so, and a lot of times you'll see this where, and it can be kind of confusing when you have a vendor's name is, ABC Company, and then another company is ABC Consulting or ABC, holding company, those sorts of things. That's when you start to get into situations where you really need to dig down and say, okay, who submitted for this IFB, RFP, small purchase, whatever, and who's actually on the contract, who's actually signing it. There are some issues that come into play here. And in this particular instance, even though that company had an active IPG registration, they had been absorbed by that parent company. And so the solution and outcome of that is the vendor really should have submitted Forms A, because that Forms B is only if you have an active IPG registration and you're actually the company that's actually going to do the work. So let me unpack that a little bit further. So on the Forms B that this vendor had signed, they are certifying as when they sign it, as you guys know, in the Forms B, that's used for your IPG vendors. It's 2 pages. They mark a few boxes, and then they sign it. But those boxes that they sign, or the boxes that they check, are very important. For instance, my business's information and the certifications made in the Illinois Procurement Gateway are truthful and accurate. The certifications and disclosures made in this Forms B are truthful and accurate, and then this Forms B is signed by an authorized officer or employee on behalf of the bidder, offer, or vendor pursuant to the sections 5013 and 5035 of the Illinois Procurement Code, and the affirmation and accuracy of the financial disclosures is made under penalty of perjury. So for the disclosures that were made on that particular Forms B, and you go into IPG and you take a look at those financial disclosures, not all the disclosures are correct, because in previous months, another company had essentially taken over and was now a parent company. So at the time of bid, and this is something that if you get a question regarding these sorts of things from a vendor, this is information that you impart. Okay, so if that, and this is kind of, like I said, it's I don't see this very often, but if a vendor would have reached out and said, hey, here's the situation, our IPG was actually this ABC Consulting, but now we are really this other company, I would have said, well, you make sure you submit Forms A that has all the same information, but it's going to have all up-to-date financial disclosures, all that sort of stuff. Or you can submit a Forms B. So moving to my next slide is they can submit Forms B if they had done a new IPG registration with all the updated name, the updated financial disclosures. So in this particular case, I believe the vendor was deemed non-responsive because that company wasn't going to end up being the vendor that did the work, signed the contract, all those sorts of things. And then I have a couple questions here. Let's see. Okay, thank you. So the SPO that was a part of this is chiming in. I really appreciate that they are on here. So question is, can you go into who signs the contract, the parent or the old company? Regarding this particular case, they were not a parent. So that's my misunderstanding here. So let me kind of just correct this. They were not a parent after the merger. It was absorbed. So answering the other question, the quote old company doesn't exist and the relationship isn't a parent. It's just one company. Okay, so that makes sense. Makes a little bit more sense now. So it wasn't actually a parent. So that is my misinterpretation. They were absorbed, and so technically that old company doesn't exist anymore. So they wouldn't. That company was deemed non-responsive, and so that vendor should have submitted a Forms A. Because that, I mean, to be frank, that vendor knew when they submitted, because I just happen to know that it was months ago, that they could have either updated their IPG, got a new Forms B, or updated their IPG so that their Forms B was most up to date, or submit Forms A. And so just as a reminder here regarding that Forms B and Forms A, many times we'll see where a vendor submits an application to IPG that still has to be vetted by the team and everything, maybe the day before a bid opening, but then they go ahead and submit their Forms B. So at the time of bid opening, they didn't have an active IPG registration. And so on cases like that, while the IPG team is currently, I mean, they're on it. The queue is low. It's not taking a lot of time for a vendor to get to get approved in IPG. But if there are issues with the application, there is that back and forth. And so, the IPG team normally says, I want to say it's 10 days to allow 10 days for that to be reviewed. And that will change depending on what the workload is and how many vendors are submitting. Currently, that's low, but that is all due to the IPG team really being on it and working hard and getting through those. But I have seen, and as many of you know also in the past, maybe it could be, that time could be a little bit longer. And so if the vendor doesn't have confirmation and they don't have an active IPG number, so that was kind of new too, is having that IPG number and an expiration date, they need to go ahead and submit Forms A just to make sure that they're not deemed non-responsive. Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I missed another question. We have vendors fill out Forms A incorrectly numerous times, even repeat vendors. Sometimes it's due to change in staff. Other times they just don't remember. Can CPO do financial disclosure training for vendors? Oh, okay. Yeah, certainly. We could provide something like that. I'm sure that's something you guys see all the time. Now, there is something slightly different regarding the non-responsive nature of this situation versus if something needs to be corrected on a disclosure, right? I mean, we're talking about two different things there. Certainly, as long as they submit Forms A, maybe they just didn't submit. They didn't. There's any number of questions. I don't want to go down to the what ifs, but those certainly can be cured. But providing vendor training, yeah, maybe we could do I can certainly reach out to you because we can provide kind of a live training on that as well. But certainly maybe we could do like kind of a video too, just how to complete that Forms A. And then regarding a disregarded entity, if you have a question regarding a disregarded entity, let's maybe talk about that offline. Currently, it seems like there's an issue there, so let's reach out separately regarding the disregarded entity. And then couldn't they have cured that? So they wouldn't have been able to cure this in this situation. I'm assuming that's what this question is regarding, because they submitted that company doesn't exist, right? So there's really a difference in that going, completely kind of making up a company and submitting something. That company doesn't exist at the time, so unfortunately, that's not able to be cured. Okay, so fun facts of the day. So February 9th, 1964, Beatles appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show for the first time, and the whole Beatlemania ensued just after that, with 73 million viewers, a record at that time. There were actually 728 people in the studio audience. And also, if you don't like the Beatles, first off, get your head checked, but second off, today's National Pizza Day. So today, fun facts are everybody wins today. And then our quote of the day, it's a longer quote, but it really ends with, "I failed over and over and over again in my life. That's why I succeed." So I think the full quote is something about, I've missed 9,000 shots. I've lost over 300 games. What else goes into it? He says, I've been given the ball 26 times at the end of a game and missed, or, for the game-winning shot and missed. But Michael Jordan's point is the reason why he succeeds is because he's failed and failed and failed over again, and then learns from those mistakes. So kind of extracting from that is we're all going to make mistakes. Let's all just know that we're going to, but let's all learn from it. And then the next time that situation arises, know how to deal with it. And we'll just pull that from Mr. Michael Jordan. All right. So do we have any other questions? Yeah, I'm getting some feedback regarding the completing a vendor video, how to complete Forms A, those sorts of things that would help for our keeping things from being unresponsive. All right, as usual, this recording will be posted in the Training Tuesday section. Slides will be sent out, and a link to the recording will be sent out to everybody on the call. Have a great rest of your day and week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks.